In September of 1897, multiple people were murdered around the Cherokee Nation courthouse in what used to be called the Saline District. These murders were dubbed the Saline Courthouse Massacre, and there are still unanswered questions surrounding these deaths today. Still standing near Rose, Oklahoma is the Saline Courthouse. This building was one of 9 courthouses built by Cherokee Nation in Indian Territory before Oklahoma statehood. However, for many in the surrounding community, it's a reminder of painful memories in Cherokee history.
During this time period, as white settlers continued to pour into Indian Territory, the U.S. government also imposed its legal authority over those settlers in Indian Territory, and it was vitally important for Cherokee Nation to assert its tribal sovereignty by preserving its own judicial system.
On November 20th of 1883, the Cherokee National Council appropriated $9,000 to construct courthouses to serve as judicial centers for each district.
When the Saline Courthouse was built in the location it is now, it sat near the home of James Teehee. So when they would hold court days here, everybody came out because you got to gather, you get to see people.
The courthouse served as the judicial hub for the Saline District for 14 years. Unfortunately, the stories that are often remembered about this place center around murder.
When most people hear of the Saline Courthouse, they think of an incident that occurred on September 20th, 1897, that locals refer to as the Saline Courthouse Massacre.
3 Cherokee citizens, Tom Badgett, Dave Ridge, and Jesse Sunday, were all murdered, but the accounts of what happened that day vary from story to story.
So when they would gather around the Saline Courthouse for these court days, it tended to get rowdy. So Tom would usually close up early that day just to kind of stay out of it. Of course, he had his family living there with him. And Saline District, it could be a rough place on those days. So Tom closes up early that day. And Dave Ridge, who is the incoming sheriff of the Saline District, was actually sent to the store by his wife to pick up groceries. There's items I have to get. Please let me in. And they're going back and forth for some time before a shot rings out back behind them and Tom Badgett falls back into his window dead. This shot came from behind Dave Ridge out of a barn.
He must have made somebody mad because they shot him through the window. And per his wife, he fell into the arms of his mother-in-law and that's where he died. So who shot him? I don't know, that's the mystery.
According to some local legends, Sheriff-elect Dave Ridge saw who murdered the storekeeper, Tom Badgett, and on that same day would meet the same grisly fate.
Dave Ridge seems to have assumed that the shot came from the woods, and he pursued the shooter on foot.
By this time, it's dark. And as Dave is coming down the road, he meets a man named Samson Rogers. And Samson Rogers is known in the community as kind of a rough guy. Dave says, "Samson, I saw you shoot Tom Badgett at the general store." And Samson says, "Is that what you're gonna tell people?" And he clubs Dave over the head with something that was blunt.
2 men were dead, Sheriff-elect Dave Ridge and general store owner Tom Badgett. News of the murders reached Saline District Sheriff Jesse Sunday.
But Sheriff Jesse Sunday was also then on the lookout. He was looking to find who had killed Thomas Badgett.
The next day, Sheriff Jess Sunday deputized his cousin Leonard Bolin, and they went off to gather information. They actually stopped at Jim Teehee's house and spoke with 2 men who were there.
Martin Rowe was sitting on the porch, and Jess and Martin were friends. So Jess goes to talk to Martin and asks him if he's heard anything. So he waits around by his horse to see what's gonna happen. Well, as Martin's walking towards him in the darkness, he opened fires on Jess and takes off running for the brush.
When the dust settled from this tragic event, the Cherokee Nation judicial system went to work trying to solve the murders of these 3 Cherokee men. Although it is widely assumed that Samson Rogers killed Tom Badgett, he was never arrested for the crime.
As far as we know, nobody has been convicted, nobody's been tried, nobody knows who killed Tom Badgett.
Samson Rogers was arrested for the murder of Sheriff-elect Dave Ridge, but he was acquitted.
Samson Rogers is actually tried for the murder of Dave Ridge, but he's not convicted because nobody would testify against him.
Sheriff Jesse Sunday's murder was attributed to a Saline community member named Martin Rowe. Rowe was initially sentenced to hang for Sunday's death, but local citizens petitioned the judge's ruling on his behalf, and Martin Rowe's sentence was commuted instead to 10 years in prison.
This is already such a tumultuous time period for Cherokee Nation, and for these murders to occur in such a short time frame really compounds the effect that they have on the community.
Before Cherokee courts could fully deal with the murders, the Curtis Act passed in 1898. This U.S. legislation undermined the Cherokee judicial system, and in 1902, the Saline Courthouse was sold at auction.
Under the Wilma Mankiller administration in 1988, Cherokee Nation actually reacquired the Saline Courthouse.
Today, the Saline Courthouse is the last remaining original district courthouse of the Cherokee Nation. Many details of the Saline Massacre remain unknown, and the tragedy is a mystery that may never be solved.